Hello, my friend Caleb. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. So, my friend, the topic of discussion today is what is the best age for a man to get married? What do you think?
Well, I don't really think there's a set age for a man to get married. Like, I don't think you could point at him and say, oh, well, you should get married at 27 or at 32 or something like that. It's probably more so inclined that the idea would be at what facilities in your life do you have at the moment that could help marriage be warranted and help it actually be successful rather than just something you do haphazardly.
All right. I have a theory about it.
Sure.
I think um, a man should get married. Well, first of all, I think to get married, if you're not religious, why would you get married? I have always asked this question. If you're not religious, and the sanctity of marriage, and you don't if you don't believe in a certain religion, and the sanctity of marriage is not it doesn't come from a religious jurisdiction for you, why would you get married? But let's say if you do want to get married, I have a theory that either you should marry your high school sweetheart, or later on when you're well established as a man, that is, later on when you are well established and in your field of work, you're established and things are working out for you, when and then you can ask the woman what she brings to the table.
Okay.
um so that's basically my theory. I think if in a situation where she's your high school sweetheart, and you've grown up together. You've spent enough time with each other where you've gone through the ups and downs of life to understand that she is there for good. She's not just there for a good time. She's there for being your full time.
Well, wouldn't you think that because when you're a teenager, things can change in you very, very drastically to the point where you're probably not even an echo of the same person that you were when you were a teenager, even say when you're 32. So do you think that there's a lot of safety in a marriage with a person that you've really formally knew that your best years together were when you were in high school?
No, I don't mean like as soon as you come out of high school, get married to her. I mean like if she's your high school sweetheart, you've spent enough time with her to have known that she is the right person for the marriage.
Okay.
And because you know all her history and you understand the person she has become, you've seen the changes in her. That's why you choose her. And the other option is, so when you're well established. Now the reason for being marrying with a woman and asking her what she brings to the table, um, is because when she is when she's not established herself and she wants to get married, and you're asking her what she brings to the table, it's not about how much money she brings to the table only. It is also about whether if she brings stability to your life, does she bring loyalty with it?
Exactly.
And loyalty being the most important thing, and not just loyalty, also the real love. Is her agenda just to get married because all her friends are getting married and now she wants
Or
to?
that she can see you as a good asset to boost her in life as well.
Yeah, basically that's true. So there could be a hidden agenda. So I think any agenda that is other than the agenda of love, if somebody's pulling you into the agreement of marriage and there is no real love involved, I think it's just manipulation.
Yeah, and it's in my opinion, it's doomed to fail. Like doomed to fail in the fact that would even if it leaves one person worse off than the other. Like even say the woman, like they divorce, the woman takes half his stuff, and the man is left to shell half of what he was before he met her.
Unfortunately,
That
yes.
is that's something that's doomed to fail. And I like that you brought up too when you were saying what does she bring to the table, and you said even regardless of money, because I feel nowadays, whenever that question is asked, what do you bring to the table? It's not a question of, well, do you bring love? Do you bring loyalty? It's, do you bring money and do you bring financial safety to work to me?
Yeah,
And because I agree in the fact that maybe you don't want to get with someone who has no initiative and no drive to follow, like to maybe advance in life, but even if they're struggling, if they're having a hard time find that all can be fixed. That can all be fixed in due time. But the most important aspect of a relationship, in my opinion, is making sure that the person loves you first and foremost,
absolutely.
and that they have they have your best interest in mind whenever you're getting with them.
Yeah. The reason I say that you need to ask what she brings to the table, because hundreds of times I have seen in the bar scene that a man gets selected for either for pleasure, then the category is his core muscles, and a woman that has taken, let's say, I don't know, 100 men from a bar home because, and because she likes his core muscles, in comparison to when she wants to get married, the core muscles go out the window. Now his stability and agreeableness, that's how Jordan Peterson puts it, his agreeableness becomes the issue. So becomes the category where she in the selection process, where she takes him home, gets him used to, go gets into the relationship with him, gets him used to with her sex, and when the time of marriage in her right mind and her, of marriage in comes to her mind, she just pulls the sex away from him, and he's like a little child, starving and wondering, like a little kid asking why he can't have his candy. And then she puts the conditions like, okay, well, you're going to bend the knee and you're going to ask me to get married to you, and that's how it's going to go. Otherwise, you'd be replaced with the man who'd be more willingness to ask me to
Yeah,
get married. And that kind of manipulation, when he doesn't really want to, he's just starved for sex.
and he's in love with the woman too, so he.
They argue that, like, there's an argument, if he just wants sex, is he really in love? But so let's say he's not in love.
Well, the question could be if he just wants sex, then why wouldn't he just go and why would the condition of marriage even be something so strong? It'd be like, well, if you don't want to be intimate with me without the official title of marriage being on the table, then why don't I just go leave you and go find another woman? That
That, or yeah, he starts going to the bars again and picking up. But a lot of times, what happens is his financial resources become so restrained, because now he's either taking care of her and him, and maybe he bought a house with her, and now he is stuck. And then he can't really go out and spend time and money like that, because if he needs to pursue another higher quality looks, a woman with the higher quality looks that he's used to with, he needs to spend money either on himself or on her by taking her out on fancy dates and all that stuff. And he can't if he can't do that anymore, he's stuck. But regardless of that, he can go and buy a prostitute if he really needs to get laid. But he wants sex from her. That's why I believe he actually is in love with her. Otherwise, what is so special about her?
but you were saying earlier that it's argued that men aren't actually if he just wants sex, then are they really in love? But if it's specifically sex with her that he wants, wouldn't that mean that he does have strong feelings towards her, right?
Yeah, it could be argued, but the argument isn't mine. I
Yeah,
believe he's in love with her. That's why he only wants her sex. Otherwise,
exactly. So I don't think it's a case of getting him addicted to her sex. I think it's more so getting him acquainted with her intimacy, whether it be not even sex, but some people derive pleasure from the act of like laying together.
no,
Like,
absolutely,
so
it's
yeah,
intimacy, but they call it sex. That's where the argument starts from the other side.
yeah,
If you were to go listen to the arguments of the other side from the women, it is like he just wants sex, and it's I believe it's sort of manipulation. She understands, yet I believe it's sort of like a manipulative tactic to say that all he wants is sex. Otherwise, why would he agree to these kind of terms? A guy who can fix a lot of things, if he's a plumber, he's an electrician, couldn't he fix sex for himself? He could get sex from somewhere if that's all he wanted.
Exactly. That's what I say as well. So my question to you would be if that's the case, why is she like what is the gain from the woman for forcing marriage upon?
I think it's like to join her comrades that are getting married at this time. So before it was a competition, it's who takes the best looking guy from the bar home. And now they've gone through a certain number of men that they have taken home. Now women her age that may be prettier looking than her are getting married and settling down. So she sees herself as someone who's being left behind, and now she needs to manipulate a man into it because she doesn't know what true love is.
So my question to you would be, do you think that is something that is actively malicious that she's doing, or do you think it's just it is still like not a good act to force someone into marriage, but do you think she's doing it knowledgeably that she knows that like she's like, oh, I'll just use this bum and marry him and I'll get to show all my friends that I married, or do you think it comes from maybe a fear that she might be falling behind in life and that
That's a very good question. I like how you phrase this. I think it's both. I think it's malicious. For example, for vegetarians, we all know, for non-vegetarians, we all know that eating animals is not the best way to live life. Like, why would you want to kill a living being to for your own pleasure when you can live on plants, right? But we still do it. I think it's like similar to that. It's more of like a learned behavior because what I call it, well, then I'm gonna make more videos about it too. I call it bimbo philosophy.
okay.
So it's women brainwashing women, other women, into manipulating men and not feeling bad about it. And um, and basically, the argument is that since women have been oppressed for hundreds of years before, now it's time that they get men back. But even though the manipulative part is that men, those that oppressed those women, are not alive anymore. And women that were oppressed are not alive either. So these new women taking revenge from new men that were not there in those times of oppression, it's sort of like a manipulation. It's like your father did the crime and now you get the punishment.
No, you're sent to jail.
So it's not fair. It's not fair.
Oh
And
no.
any logical mind would understand it that the father's crime must not be punishable for the son. Yet they admittedly do it. And they don't see anything wrong with it. So I think it's both. It's philosophy, the bimbo philosophy, saying that men did us so much harm, so it's our time to do it to them. So like, when does this circle end? And on the other hand, I think it's more because everybody's doing it and it's working out for them. So lying to a man, for example, when it comes to a man, they a man usually requires and must require. I fully agree with it, and I'll tell you a story about it.
Sure.
He must require to understand her past.
Yes.
Where many women argue that past is the past, it doesn't need to be brought up again. But in case they would want to bring it up, what if he was a murderer? If he was a murderer, she would want to understand his past. If there
Well,
was a murder in his
all
past.
you have to do is look at the job application. Even to go do something as simple as a job, if you want to go be a cashier at Circle K or something like that, they still want general knowledge of your past.
Eh,
Your past shapes who you are, no matter how you try to argue it. Like no matter what I say, everything that's happened throughout my life has shaped me into who I am today. All my decisions that in my past make me like are I am the consequence of all my decisions in my past. And as my mom says a lot too, past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior too.
I fully agree. I fully agree. So, for example, I knew this one girl. I was talking to her at the gym, and she'd been a sex worker for a couple of years, and now she was getting married. Now, because I'm quite frank with her. I asked her, did she tell her husband and to be that she's been a sex worker before? She's like, absolutely not. Why would I tell him that? I'm like, don't you feel weird? Like, what after 20 years he finds out, or maybe he meets one of your past clients and that then learns that his beloved wife was a sex worker before, and wouldn't it hurt him? She's like, well, my past is none of his business. I'm like, well, how is your past none of his business? If I was,
You're devoting essentially, if you're marrying someone, you're basically devoting your life to them.
yeah,
So
absolutely,
so
absolutely,
their your life is now their business
yeah,
because you guys are officially joining lives together.
absolutely.
It's
And didn't see it that way. She said, my past is my past. I needed money. I mean, well, the point is the morality of it. Like, next time you needed money, you'd get back into sex business again and then see nothing wrong with it. And it's the matter of consent.
and it's also the factor of hiding things from her.
No, absolutely.
Like
That too.
I for me anyways, if I were to be with a person, how long were they together? Bef-
Uh,
Before he
4 years. Four
so
years.
they were together for 4 years. I would at least like to know the general your life before 4 years. And if you were a sex worker for a good portion of that time, that's a pretty big thing to hide, right?
Yeah.
It's like maybe not to the same respectability, but it's like hiding the fact that you were a Navy SEAL from someone. And I don't know if I was a Navy SEAL and I hid it from my wife, and then after her and I were married, and a bunch of guys come to my house and it'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's because I was a Navy SEAL." Rightfully so. She'd be like, "What the what?"
And she would have never told me either. But when I was in school, I used to drive cab, and I used to drive her to her customers' houses. And she used to tell me about, oh, wait for me outside the house. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, take off. So she'd pay me extra money just to sit outside. If she doesn't like the client, she's going to run outside. So she used to tell me that she's getting paid for sex. So, but more importantly, it's the matter of consent. You are getting somebody's consent without telling him or her, or especially in this case him, a complete information.
Oh yeah,
He is consenting to marrying you when he doesn't really know what and who you are.
exactly. It's like, would you ever sign a contract for something if on the contract there was a bunch of blacked out lines hiding information from you? No,
Absolutely not.
exactly. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. So why? And the thing is, when it comes to marriage, depending on how things go, if you want to leave, sometimes you have to leave at the. If you're a man, anyways, a lot of the times, if you want to leave, it's at the detriment to half of your property. So that's
Yes.
a pretty big consequence off chance.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a story of it. A good friend of mine, he met a girl at a bar, and she was known her for her promiscuity at the bar. She'd gone home with quite a few men at the bar. 3 months later, he told me that he was going to get married to her. And when we sat down, I asked him what was going on and how is he planning to get married? It's only been 3 months, and he said that she basically said to him that if he doesn't bend the knee and ask her to marry him, she'll just replace him with the guy who would, because that's what she wants to do now. She wants to get married. So what happened is on when she wanted to get married as soon as possible, and she also came up with the list of wedding arrangements that he was to pay for because she didn't have any money. And a long story short, the list consisted of all the things that required him to pay out $50,000. And he had $7,000 in his account. He borrowed $25,000 from his grandfather. He basically blackmailed his grandfather into giving him a $25,000 loan, which he never paid back, and he doesn't talk to his grandfather anymore. So now that this is the guy of integrity. He wasn't like this before, as far as I knew him. So he had put together $7,000 for himself to start his business. He was a plumber, and he borrowed $3,000 for his mother. Those were the last. So this was his mother was not rich. She had only $3,000. She gave it all to him, and the rest he borrowed on his credit card. So $7,000, $25,000 from his grandfather, $3,000 from his mother, and rest on the credit cards. And the arrangements, including the wedding planner, had this band that would come to the wedding. I think the band was about $5,000. These special flowers that were quite expensive, special lighting, and a bunch of other arrangements. $50,000 was spent in one night. 3 months later, she slept with some guy, some other guy, and even though he quickly forgave her, the arguments back and forth made the relationship fall apart, and she just left. And that was the end of it. Now, he doesn't talk to his grandfather because the grandfather kept asking for his money back. His mother just forgot about the 3,000, and he filed a consumer proposal on the bank loan that he borrowed, and the 7,000 he had put together for his plumbing business never even
So
started.
a man with integrity, like you said, and someone who had a career outline because a plumber makes good money. He had basically a whole life set up for him. Why do you think that he would just almost throw all that away for a woman he's only known for 3 months?
Because he grew up with stoic values. He I don't think he ever understood when his mother said to show respect to women. He basically thought that it meant not asking for sex. If he would ask for sex or give any sexual innuendos, that would mean disrespecting a woman, and that's what he had learned because he never really learned to be a good-looking guy. But so whenever he brought up anything sexual to even an average-looking woman, she basically rejected him along with the insults because he wasn't as good-looking of a guy. He just never learned the process of seduction. He just couldn't go up and verbally seduce a woman enough to take things further. And because he believed in those stoic values, when he went to the bar and she picked him up for that specific reasons, because he didn't have the core muscles to show to pick up the higher quality women. And that woman that married him later on picked him up for the specific purpose, and the purpose was his agreeableness.
So, would you say, long story short, it was desperation that he? Because
No, absolutely desperation, but lack of learning. He was never really connected enough with his mother, where his mother could teach him the how women think or feel or believe, what women's sexuality is. He never had enough connection with his mother because his mother was always busy in her own shenanigans, and there was not really enough connection where they could just sit down and discuss male and woman connection, or because his father was also stoic and he had married his mother and he never really saw any specific love between them, so he didn't really understand what a real relationship is like. He just thought man and woman get married, and
man finds woman, woman marries man.
what he saw in the movies, right? So what he learned from the movies was not something that happened in reality because
So he was like almost expecting to stumble upon his true love. Like,
yeah, basically he when he met her, he felt that this was a magical moment. She asked him to buy her a beer, and he did, which he does all the time. After he buys the beer, she always goes home with the guy that she's already pre-selected, or the guy that has the core muscles, is good looking, is a bad boy.
yada
He
yada
takes
yada.
yada yada, right? And he takes her home. Yet all the beers are bought by this guy. So he never really learned to be the guy that doesn't buy the beer and still takes her home. And so for due to all those stoic values, he became this person who was a perfect candidate for abuse.
So for me, that doesn't really sound like he was very stoic. It just seemed more so that he was lacking in confidence, that he didn't really have a backbone to say no to.
See, I believe that he did believe in the Stoic values growing up.
but practice them poorly.
He did practice them early enough in his years. From because I know him, I've known him for a long time. He did practice those values for long enough when he was young and good looking enough, um, and especially in the age where the looks didn't matter as much as they did later on. In those years, he did follow those Stoic values, but later on, the lack of success brought in the
It
desperation.
bothered him. Yeah.
Yeah, and the desperation turned into such aggression that any uh, bimbo in this case would be acceptable.
And that's funny enough, because I was actually having a conversation with some of my friends the other day about that. Because I have a friend who is interested in a girl, and he didn't realize that, well, she might have been interested in him. She also was interested in a few other people. So I essentially had a conversation with him, and I said to him, listen, one quick fling is not worth the possibility of the destruction that could be brought if it turns out that the person that you're with is an abusive person. Because there, for me, desperation breeds abuse. Because if you're desperate for someone, that's the exact candidate that the abuser's looking for.
Yeah, well, how old is he though?
He's around a little bit younger than me, around the same age.
So how old is that?
Let's say about like 20 or 19.
Well, I think he should go for it in that age because if he gets hit early enough, then that's a great learning experience.
It is a great learning experience, but also at the same time it can be very destructive for you in your years at the same time, because it, in my opinion, it could also ruin if you have a relationship that is terrible and then you go into one that is good, then that terrible experience could sour the good one too.
Yes, but that could be the case in anything, right? Isn't it better to be 10 years later if he gets married to one of those bimbos and she takes him out for a wedding day for $50,000, or worse yet, after $50,000, takes half of his house?
I don't think you have to go through the awfulness of a terrible relationship as long as you have people who are willing to guide you around it. Because a lot of the times, normally it's more so for women that get the navigation skills to figure out if you're in a terrible relationship or not. Like, this is what you should expect from a relationship. This is how he should be treating you. If he's not treating you, then it's not proper for you, and you
Yeah,
should find a way out.
women gather around each other to teach each other.
Where
Yes.
men, it's more so just find a girl, buddy. If you don't find a girl, something's wrong with you.
The prettiest one,
And
especially.
and that's the thing, is like I haven't even been told this exact information before from friends. It was never find a good quality girl. It was never find a loyal
Absolutely.
girl. It was never find a girl who will love you. It was just find a girl.
And men treat women badly too.
They do, absolutely.
Absolutely, but I think there is a lot of advice available for women to change things around. But where men uh, uh, are vultures to each other, like we insult each other for when a guy's girl. I've seen friends at the bar scene when they're sitting together having a beer and humiliating each other, telling him his penis would be too small, must be too small, that's why she left him. Things like that. And we are like vultures, but when a woman goes through a breakup, half the town's women gather together to help her out, go through that situation. But men are terrible, man. And especially um, in these kind of cases, that's how the loneliness is so prevalent among men. The men are the most loneliest creatures on earth, as far as
Yeah,
I.
exactly. Every single if you go to these friends, and your friends are supposed to be your group of people that you can go to and talk about your issues. And the moment you bring something up, they say things like, "Oh, well, quit being such a little bitch," or
Yeah,
something like that. Then you're not going to want to talk to them
yeah,
anymore.
absolutely,
And when you can't even turn to your friends, or you can't turn to your parents, then who else can you really turn to?
absolutely.
So it's going to just lead to inevitable isolation. And I don't, and as we were saying, like the women will always gather around to put them on a path where I think that needs to be the case for men, and especially how you were saying that they're vultures. Like I know I've seen it before, and even though it's in the movies, it happens in real life too, where some men they'll see one girl who's interested in a couple guys, and all the guys will fight each other for the affection of the girl.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I say to them, like, do you really want the girl who is playing five men at once, who is trying to toy with the emotions of five men at once? Do you really, is that the prize that you want? Because in my opinion, that's like winning Russian roulette.
Yeah, and you know what's worst? I mean, see, this is where it says like a lot of men only blame women, but there are the worse than that woman who's playing five guys is the guy who is um
Determined to beat the four other guys.
no, no, not, yeah, but that's the game too, but the guy who is after his friend's girlfriend.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I mean, and this is not uncommon. I have seen um this guy. I wrote a story about him in my book. His name is Scott. The number of men that were after his girlfriend, that were supposedly his friends, and he would take them out, buy them beers. They'd hang around him because he wasn't the smartest guy around. They would take advantage of him, and they just wanted his girlfriend. And
And did the
got,
woman go with them too, or
yeah, yeah, she did.
like
And
cheated on him?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, a man that never connected with his mother is not dealt kindly by the
Well, to
world.
me too, it seems like a lack of brotherhood as well.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
no man likes to be cheated on, but it seems like a lot of them don't mind if they're the ones who are making the girl cheat.
that's right.
Like I will give an example of my father, right? I remember when my parents first split up, my dad like did a big woe is me speech about all the women in my life, they've always cheated on me with other guys. Where my life is so terrible, no woman is loyal to me. And then when he met one of his ex-girlfriends, like when they were first starting to meet, she was still married to her husband, was planning a divorce soon, but they weren't officially in the process of divorcing. When my dad met her, he took her out for dinner, went to the bar, and then he slept with her that night. And when I found that information out about him, I was probably about 14, 15 years old. I asked him, so you have such a staunch stance against cheating. So how come it sat right with you to find a woman who is still in a relationship and essentially make her cheat with you? And he says, "Well, I don't." He's like, "Well, I as long as I get to do what I want, I don't care." And so to me, it just showed to me that he doesn't care about cheating unless it happens to him. The thing is, if you breed that type of community, that community is going to spread out and thrive.
Absolutely.
If you have the integrity enough to just say, like, no, you're in a relationship, I don't want to do anything. I'll be your friend as long as your husband knows.
Yeah. Worse
That,
yet, than that is than chasing after your one of your good friends' girlfriend.
oh yeah,
It's unbelievable to me. That aspect of society is something that really boggles my mind. And when you make friends with a guy, but your intention is if his girlfriend is ready to sleep with you, you'll jump in the sack with her in a moment. It just blows my mind. Like, what kind of life do you live? Like, what kind of piece of garbage are you?
it just shows that you have no integrity to yourself and the fact that you can't show any restraint towards this girl. If she was single, then sure, why not? But and even if like how we were saying earlier, it's not as bad if you're with if it's a total stranger's girlfriend, but it's still bad. But I think it's terrible. Like the worst thing you could possibly do if it's your best friend's girlfriend. So how much do you not value your friendship with that person in order for to have like maybe an hour of fun?
And what is so special about that one particular? Like, why can't you use restraint? There is millions of other girls out there. Then why go after your friend's girlfriend? I just don't get it. It just doesn't
Exactly.
make any
So
sense to me.
to me, it just seems like it's bad comparisons and the fact that you've probably if this person's your best friend, it's clear to say that you've probably been friends with him for years. You've probably had really good times with him. probably been there for each other during bad times as well, and you're willing to throw that away just for an hour of fun.
That's right.
Because that's essentially what it is. That's 60 minutes is not even comparable to 4 years.
So I guess our conclusion is that either it's a high school sweetheart. So my conclusion is if it's a either it's a high school sweetheart or later on when you can ask her what she brings to the table.
I think marriage is a like I sort of lean towards the second part where it's you're in a place where you don't it's you're not really defined by your relationship. You could take them or leave them. Essentially, a relationship, as I said in our first video that we ever did, is the relationship is more so just the whipped cream on the pie, right? It's this the extra little bit of sweetener on there, and that's how it should be. So you're not really craving the pie itself. You're craving just the little thing to make it that much better. So you're not looking for the first person willing to give you a slice of pie.
That's right. That's right. And my friend, I guess we'll conclude this topic right here.
Sounds good.
We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now. Ciao.